Hey, I'm April, and this is Bitch Bed Podcast. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back, or welcome to the podcast. I'm April. I've had this question, topic, whatever you want to call it, circulating my brain recently. So, figured I would talk to you guys about it. This question, topic, was brought to me by my senior year health teacher, Mr. Whitmore. And it's about believing in something. He had given us some advice one day about the need to believe in something. He stressed the importance that we need to believe in something, and it didn't have to make sense to anybody, nor did it have to be the same as everybody else, nor did we have to agree on what to believe in. But it was important that we found out what our answer was to this question. After that particular class that he gave us that advice, I didn't really think about it too much, mainly because I didn't feel like this advice was for me. At the time, I associated believing in something with religion, with being religious, and I knew back then that I wasn't a religious person, just like I know now that I'm not a religious person. I've been to church. I've been to multiple types of churches. I've listened to a bunch of different religions, and it wasn't for me. It just never, not that it didn't make sense to me, but it didn't really make sense to me, nor did it really resonate with me, and it didn't really make me feel anything. It didn't make me feel one type of way or another. So I just kind of tossed that advice over my shoulder and moved on. But over the years, I feel like subconsciously I've been pondering this question, and I've been looking for an answer. And I think that I've started to collect different things that I believe in to hopefully be able to now answer this question all these years later. So we're going to talk about some of the things that I found. One of the first things that my brain gathered for something to believe in was the idea of guardian angels. And they're definitely not guardian angels in the sense of like religion, like, the archangels and things like that. But it's mainly about just your loved ones looking out for you and guiding you and watching over you after they have passed away. So the best way that I can really describe this is my grandma. So my grandma, she died when I was not even a year old. So I didn't really get a lot of time with her. I didn't really, get a lot of memories with her. I didn't really get to experience her the way that the rest of my family did. And since I was the baby of the family, they got a lot of special moments with her and more time with her and things like that. And I was never jealous of them. I was never mad that I never got that same time with her that they did, because I just always felt connected to her. I never felt like she was too far away from me. And I always believed that she would just watch over me and do what she could to protect me and guide me into certain paths of life, I guess you would say. So as I grew up and as time moved on, I had to deal with loss, as does everybody. And one of the things that I found myself saying to people that would lose a loved one was that they're never gone. You haven't lost them. They're all, you just can't see them anymore. They're not with you in a physical sense, but they're with you in a spiritual sense. And I believe that for myself, with my aunts and uncles that have passed away, with my grandpa that passed away recently. I know I'm going to see them all again. And I know that they're never too far away from me if I really need them. It's just more of a one-sided conversation now. But knowing they're with me and knowing they're going through life with me is nice. And it brings me a sense of peace and a sense of comfort that I'm not truly alone with whatever it is that I'm dealing with, even though I'm going to always be the one doing all the work. But I'm not alone in that battle. Another thing that I collected to this repertoire of beliefs was music. And music, I believed in the power of music and music just in general for probably just as long as I believed in guardian angels. But for different reasons. Music, to me, for the longest time, felt like the only thing that understood me and the only thing that really heard my pain. And the only real thing that could express the level of pain that I was feeling, or even still feel. And it was just a way that I could get lost in a song and have it say everything I needed to say without anybody knowing that I needed to say it. And it just felt like I was heard and I was seen, and that I definitely wasn't alone in the struggles and the battles and the shit that is life. I just feel like music has its own language, because artists and musicians and bands, they all go into a studio and they create this music. And it could be because of what they're dealing with in their life. They got inspiration from something that they saw, they read, they heard about. And they created this song, this music, this album, this whatever. And they put it out into the world. And then they listen for other people. And then they wait for other people to hear it. And then somebody hears it and they find their own meaning in that song, even if it's not the meaning that the artist or band or musician had intended when they created it and wrote it. And I find the beauty in that. I think that's so beautiful. And it proves how music can transcend. I listened to this podcast the other week, and it's called Artist Friendly. And the person that created this podcast his name is Joel Madden, and he was a part of the band Good Charlotte. If you haven't listened to Good Charlotte, I recommend it. But anyway, so he started this podcast because he was having all these different conversations with his musician friends, whether it was backstage at shows, in the studios, just hanging out. He was having these super in-depth conversations about life and music and meaning and just, everything. And he felt like these were important conversations for other people to hear. So that's why he started the podcast, and he just records conversations with him and his friends. And he had an episode with Jacoby Shaddix, and he is the lead singer of Papa Roach, which is also a fabulous band if you have not heard them. And so Joel and Jacoby were having a conversation, and it ended up coming around to music. And they were talking about when they get compliments from people, when fans come up to them and they're like, "Hey, thank you so much for creating this song. It really saved my life." And they were talking about like how they take that compliment. And Joel had said that a lot of people don't really know how to take that compliment, because it's, to me, when I heard them talk about this, it's kind of a heavy compliment to be told or to be given, because that wasn't their intention. Their main intention for creating music, from what I gathered from this podcast, was that they're trying to create something to let other people know that they're not alone in their own struggles. That no matter what they're going through in their life, the band is going to be going through it right alongside you, regardless if it's the same struggle or something different. Struggle recognizes struggle. And I've said for a long time, pain recognizes pain. Which is why I gravitated to a specific genre of music, but that's a whole nother conversation. So they're talking about this compliment, and Joel had said, "The music is the bat signal." And when he said that, I was just like, yes, exactly. That's exactly what music is. Whether you're the one lighting the bat signal or you're the one looking for the bat signal, that's music. And I remember I got like an ear-to-ear smile when he said that, because it finally made sense of a lot of feelings that I was having about music. And it's just that music is the bat signal. And it's the artist's way of telling you that they're there for you, and that they hear you, they see you, and, they want to try and make it better. And for the fans, the bat signal is a way to signify, hey, here's a lifeline. Here's something to take your mind off it. Here's something to let you know that you're not the only one dealing with whatever you're dealing with. It's just that support and that deep breath, sigh of relief that you're going to get through it. And it was such a good conversation that they had, and it made me listen to more episodes of Joel's podcast. And I highly recommend it if you haven't heard it already. I also, with the bat signal, feel like certain songs find you when you need them to. And to explain that, I have this story. I was driving to campus one day, getting my bachelor's degree, and I was driving to campus, and I was using Pandora at the time, so that kind of shows my age a bit. I was never a Spotify person, but I really liked Pandora, and I would alternate between 4 or 5 different stations, depending on my mood. And I was listening to this one station. I think it most likely was A Day to Remember radio. And this song came on that I had never heard before. I never even heard of the band before. And I was just listening to the lyrics, and I thought to myself, oh, this song's gonna get me through some shit. Like, I'm gonna be listening to this song for a while. And it was Here's to the Heartache by Nothing More. And I still always get like a fond smile when this song comes on unexpectedly. And then there are times where I go and seek out this song just to hear it. But it's such a good song, and it's kind of just like, yeah, shit sucks sometimes, and it's not fun, and it's really painful, and we want it to end, but it's through those struggles and through those hard times and difficult times that we can get to the good parts of life. And I ended up listening to a lot more of their music, and I ended up seeing them in concert just a while back. They were great. And it just opened up this whole new door for me. And if you enjoy music and you haven't seen your favorite bands live, I highly recommend it, because that is listening to music on a whole nother level. And the reason I say that is because when you go to a show, you're surrounded by hundreds of thousands of people that you have no idea who they are, what their story is, anything like that. All you know is that all these people came together to watch this one band, or 3 to 4 bands, but mainly it's the headliners. They're coming to see these headliners of these tours because this band found and reached all of these people, and now we're all coming together collectively to listen to them play their songs live. And it's such a freeing experience, because for 2 to 3 hours, you get to leave your bullshit at the door. You get to leave it in the car, at the house, in the hotel. You just get to leave all your problems, all your worries, all your horrible memories, everything, all your bullshit. You get to leave it at the door for 2 to 3 hours. And for 2 to 3 hours, you get to have this escape and this connection to a bunch of different people that you've never met before in your life and will probably never see them again after that night ends. And you're coming together for one common thing, which is that band or that artist or that music. And it gives you like a sense of community for a little bit, which I think is really nice. And music was the first kind of community I found myself a part of. And sometimes I still just find myself in that community, which is 100% fine. But I do think that I'll end up finding other different communities as my life goes on. That leads me to the next thing that I found myself believing in, which is zodiac signs and natal charts. And this might, I know this has been a hot topic with a couple of other things that have been released recently. It's not for everybody, just like everything's not for everybody, but it's something that I've always been curious about. I've always been curious about zodiac signs, and I didn't really start diving into the natal charts until a couple years ago. So even that's still very new to me. But I've always loved the zodiacs. And one of the things that I really like about the natal charts, and for those that don't know what natal charts is, it's basically you can go and Google natal charts and it'll bring you to a whole list of different websites. And basically, it gives you a breakdown of where all the planets in our solar system were the time that you were born. So the things that you would need to find your own natal chart, if you're curious, is obviously your birthday. That's kind of the biggest thing. And you also need to know the place that you were born. So nothing too specific. Normally just like the city and state that you're born in is good enough. And you also need to know the time that you were born. And the time is really specific because certain things change depending on the time. So if you want to get the most accurate representation of your natal chart, you also want to find out your time. You can find both those things on your birth certificate. So either go digging through your files or call up your parents and be like, hey, do you have my birth certificate that I can look at? And so one of the things that interests me with the natal charts is that it kind of just gives me a more understanding about myself and about me. And yes, you can look up natal charts for literally anybody if you know those three things, and you can find out, what their Saturn was in, or what their Uranus was in, or what their Pluto was in. And I have looked up a couple of people in my life just because we all got curious, but I mainly just focus on it for myself because I want to understand myself more and better. And it breaks down things like how you process stuff, how you feel things, how you achieve things, how you can grow and evolve. So I just want to learn all that I can about myself so that way I have a better understanding of who I am as just a human and how I can, do those types of things to better myself. And lets me know kind of what I can do to be the best version of myself. So it's basically just like an overview of like, hey, this is kind of what it all means. And some people, I'm sure I am probably also one of them that kind of like drifted from what I was supposed to, quote unquote, be destined for when I was born. But it can also be a way to kind of get yourself back on track if you want to do that. So it's just like an overview of kind of who you are as a person. So that's what I like about it. And I still don't know a lot about it. I would love to learn more and dissect my natal chart more, but I'm still very curious about it and am looking forward to learning more about myself through that avenue. The last thing that I started believing in recently, and when I say recently, I also mean the last couple of years, but more so within the last year, 6 months to a year, is tarot cards. And tarot, to a lot of people, kind of gets a bad reputation. And they also just kind of dismiss it for their own reasons, which is totally fine. If you don't like it, you don't have to do anything about it. But I see it as a way for me to help guide myself towards being the best version of myself. And a different side to tarot is shadow work, which is basically self-reflection and self-evaluation. It helps you look deep within yourself to find the root of some repressed emotion that you have, whether from childhood or from some trauma that you experience, whether as a child or as a young adult or even as an adult. And it lets you basically let those emotions go so you can move forward in your life and be a better person or evolve and grow and heal. So that's kind of what I like about it. I'm always kind of striving to be a better person, the best version of myself. I always want to know why I do things and why when I've started recently, when I do my own shadow work, I'm like, okay, I need to start kind of identifying when my shadow comes up. So when these, I don't want to say like negative traits, but like these kind of like more darker emotions show up, and I want to figure out why, when certain things trigger my shadow, why I have that reaction. So that just helps me look deeper within who I am and my upbringing and what I experienced to get a better idea of how I can move on from it and put it behind me and heal from it, so that way I don't have to bring it into the next thing that I end up going into for myself, whether it be a job, a new avenue, or whenever that next step comes, or just other different relationships, not romantic, but like interpersonal relationships that come into my life. I also want to make sure I'm treating them the way that they should be treated, and I don't want to have my quote-unquote shadow self rear its ugly head to the people that I care about. And while I was working on this podcast, I was kind of still thinking back to that advice that Mr. Whitmore had given me all those years ago. And what I think he was trying to do was he was trying to have us find something that we can turn to in our times of need. Like when we're at our darkest and lowest places, we can turn to this thing that we believe in to help us either get out of it or make it through it, or to even give us hope that it won't always be like this forever. We're not always going to be in this dark cave or this dark tunnel or this just abyss of darkness, that it's going to eventually change and shift and get better. Some people, they tend to turn to things that are not always the healthiest options, like a bottle or a substance, or even sometimes sex, just as a way to distract themselves from it, or to just brush it aside, brush under the rug, put it in the closet in some way to just avoid it. And the highs and lows in life are inevitable. It's going to happen, whether we like it or not, whether we're prepared for it or not. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. And in my opinion, it's how you handle the low parts that impact how much you will enjoy and appreciate the high parts. And I can't remember exactly where I heard this, but I think it's just some video on the internet. I can't remember if it's TikTok or if it was like on Facebook or Instagram, or if my husband showed it to me. But this person had made the comparison to the ups and downs of life to a heartbeat. And if you ever have been in a hospital or looked at your heartbeat, or watched any medical shows that have the heart monitor on it, the heartbeat goes up and down. And it's a consistent up and down rhythm for the heartbeat. And when somebody loses a heartbeat, whether you disconnect it from the machine, or when somebody dies and they're in a hospital and they're connected to this machine, it flatlines. And what a flatline is basically the line goes straight. So there's no ups and downs of life that show life anymore. And I thought that was an interesting comparison, because it explains exactly what I just said, that ups and downs, highs and lows in life are absolutely inevitable. And it's those ups and downs of life that prove that you're alive, that prove that you're here and that you can experience these things. And yes, what goes up must come down, but also, as my dad has liked to said, if you're at rock bottom, the only place you can go is up. So eventually the tide will turn, something's going to shift, something's going to give, and you're going to have that increase going back up. A lot of people that I've kind of come across in my life and I've talked to, a lot of people have the tendency to just focus on the down. They are just like, they're low, they're in their low parts, and they're on like the downside of life, and they fixate on that and they focus on that. And sometimes it even gets to the point where they're terrified of when things are going good and things are on the up and up and they're at the high parts of life, because they're constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. They're constantly waiting for something to go wrong. They're constantly just like, this is too good to be true. Something's going to happen. Something's going to cause this to then shift downward. And, excuse me. And while yes, that is true, it also takes away from the enjoyment of the high part. And if you're constantly focusing or looking for or looking over your shoulder for the next inevitable downshift, you're taking yourself out of the present, of the moment, of the good part. And I think that's a good outlook to have. Just like, hey, yeah, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna have highs. I'm gonna have lows. I'm gonna have days where I don't want to get out of bed, and I'm also gonna have days where I feel like I can conquer the world. And it's important to acknowledge that those two will always happen, and normally they'll happen right after each other. But appreciate when you're at the high and acknowledge when you're at the highs of life, and be grateful that you're there, and also just take it in and remember it, so that way when you're at your next low part, you have something to look forward to. Like, okay, yeah, we're in the thick of it. We're, in the ruts, and we're, really going through it. But I know once we get through it, it's going to then be better. It's going to be something different. And, we can plan for that next big trip or that next whatever it is. And you have something to then look forward to after you get out of that dark part or that low part. So things that I believe in are not really considered by like society standards as like normal. Some might be considered more normal than others, but they're the things that bring me peace, and they're things that give me guidance for when I'm in a tough spot and I don't know which way is up. They're just things that give me comfort, that I'm like, okay, yeah, this sucks, but I can turn to one of these 4 things that I believe in to kind of help me get through it or get out of it, or kind of, help me just exist through it and while I'm in it. I am constantly looking for ways to be a better person, and for ways that I can be a better person. And when I say that I'm trying to be a better person, I'm not trying to be a better person for anybody other than myself. And, well, maybe also my husband, since he's going to have to deal with me for the rest of our lives. And I would like him to enjoy our time together. I don't want to be an absolute menace to him, or the worst part of his day. So some of the things that I believe in, like the tarot and the natal charts mainly, require me to do the work in order for me to be that better person and to be that better version of myself. And I've never been afraid of doing the work. I enjoy a good challenge, and not everybody does, which is totally fine. And I know it's not easy work that I have to do, and yeah, I'll bitch about it. Yeah, I'll complain about it. Yeah, I'll whine, cry, and complain that, it's not a good time to have to do it, or I'll try and avoid it. But at the end of the day, I know it has to be done. And I think that scares a lot of people from doing that type of hard self-work, and they just end up staying exactly where they are. Which, I don't like staying where I am when I'm not happy about something. If I know that there's something about me that can be better and I don't like about myself, I'll, hunker down and buckle down and do what I need to do to fix that thing. And sometimes it's a painful experience, because you have to, go to the darkest parts of your mind and, figure out which demon you gotta take into the ring and, put behind you. But it's necessary to be able to actually leave it behind you and not have it affect you in the present and maybe even in the future. So that way you can enjoy certain experiences that you get to have, or be able to look at things from a different perspective to notice different things and to observe different things and to, share different things. So if you haven't found something to believe in, my advice would be to find something that helps you through the pain, not something that helps you numb it or forget it for a little while. The only way to move on from something is to go through it. And one of the many things I learned in therapy was emotions need to have their turn at center stage. They have to. That's the only way that they're going to be satisfied with feeling the thing. So you actually have to feel the emotion to be able to process it correctly in order for you to be able to move on from it. And when I say feel the emotion, I don't just mean, oh yeah, like that sadness, like not just recognizing the emotion. You actually have to feel it. And I feel a lot of people get that confused where they're like, no, like, yeah, like I was sad that day. I'm like, okay, you were sad. You recognize that, sad is the emotion, but have you actually, like, did you cry? Did you think about it? Why were you sad? What made you feel sad? And really get to the root of that emotion. And, emotions are meant to be felt through the body. It's not just something that you're like, oh yeah, that's the emotion, and then move on. They're kind of stubborn and persistent that way. So, they're very particular about what they want, and they want to have that full body experience, I guess you can say. So if they don't get it, they're going to get annoying. Pain can also have an emotional element to it as well. So, yeah, a lot of people think of pain as like more of a physical sense, but it can still have that emotional tied to it. So a lot of people don't want to feel that pain. And I can contest to that. I put off doing things for a long time because I didn't want to, go back to that place in my head that I knew the pain sat at. But I knew that the only way I was going to be able to move on from it and to heal from it and to be better from it was I had to go in and I had to face it and I had to feel it. And it wasn't fun, but it also didn't last forever. It, maybe it'll last for an hour, maybe it'll last for a day or so. But the sooner you're able to not only recognize the emotion, but also then be able to feel it, it can be, sometimes it could be a 5-minute thing. If you start getting really good at it, you'll just be able to feel your emotions when they pop up, and they're no longer a problem anymore. So if there is something about yourself that you don't like, I do encourage you to find something that will help you fix it, because nobody's going to fix it for you. It doesn't have to be what I did for myself, because how I approach life isn't the same way as other people. And maybe it works for some and maybe, it doesn't work for others. I have a very, direct approach, and I'm very just head on about things. And I'm like, okay, I have to do this, so let's go ahead and do that. And I don't really cut corners. Well, unless I get really good at it, then I can. But I kind of learned the process of it, and then I'm like, okay, this works. When it pops up again, this is what I know what to do. I know what to do to handle that thing. So find something that you believe in. Find what you believe in and see if you can use that to help you with your own journey and help you figure out your process and help you figure out, what best works for you to get through your pain and through your emotions. And it's scary. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's not fun. It's definitely not something I would, put a Yelp review on, but sometimes it's necessary. And, that's I feel like that's the adult thing to do, is to be able to recognize when something's wrong with you and something's not doing a good service to you, and to work on it and to make it be something good for you. So I hope you find that, or I hope you already found that, and I hope it continues to take you through this life that we have and be better for it. And as always, to all the negative voices in your head, bitch bet. Thanks so much for listening. Until we talk again next time.